What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Double Coverage, the premier NFL podcast of the Gin Sports Network. I'm your host, John J. II, alongside our NFL expert, Robert Rocco. Robert, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Glad it's Friday. Off to a new year here. So, playoff football is coming quick. So, I'm excited, man.
Yep, it's on our tail and it's catching up to us, and we're excited for it. And this is the best time. We said this in the green room. This is the best time to do this episode, just because this is before all the craziness begins, all the way until Super Bowl Sunday on February the 8th. In Santa Clara, California. So I guess what do we have to look forward to? It's not long. We're only a month away from Super Bowl Sunday, but who's looking like the top dog right now to win it all?
Yeah, that's the tough question, man. I mean, you got a few teams. Obviously, the Seahawks have been playing really well. You like to lean towards the NFC just because the Seahawks and the Rams have kind of looked like that team for a lot of the year. But they've had a couple questionable games, where they didn't look the greatest. But it's all going to hinge on the quarterback play, for both those teams. So can Sam Darnold elevate his game and become the next, franchise quarterback? Or is he going to play like Sam Darnold's played every time he's made it to the playoffs, which hasn't been much anyway. But and then obviously Matthew Stafford's Matthew Stafford, MVP candidate, and all that. So, and then on the AFC side, you got the Broncos have just been kind of playing, kind of hit and miss on their offense, but their defense has been really good. They got like a sack leading defense, some notable guys, but they're really getting pressure from everywhere. That's what you like about the Broncos is they have, I think they lead the league in sacks, but they don't really have a bunch of double digit sack guys. So they're just getting it from linebackers, interior defensive linemen, edge rushers, and all of that. So you really like to see a team like that got, decent run game, decent quarterback, good defense. Similar to the Texans, really, and you look at the Broncos and Texans. Broncos got a little bit better offense at times, but Texans got that flash too. But Texans might edge them out a little bit on the defense just from how much, shutdown capability they have. And then obviously the Patriots. The Patriots really came out of nowhere. With Vrabel being the coach, it felt like a good fit, right? Former Patriot coming in, and they have probably the most complete team, I would say, in the playoffs. They got a good run game, good defense, good offense, MVP candidate quarterback who's young. That's a concern again, though, right? He's got a young quarterback, hasn't had playoff experience. Now they got a full year of tape on him. People have probably been saving some stuff that he hasn't seen, right? For the playoffs. So the Chargers, they're not looking like they're going to make a run, but they got some good defensive players like Derwin James and all that. Hopefully they're all healthy. And you just wonder if teams have really been saving some things for people like the Patriots for the playoffs.
Absolutely. So that's a great teaser of what we're looking at for this episode, guys. We're going to get back into the NFL playoff picture here in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about the Pro Capper. The champion of the Pro Capper League is, you're looking at him, Robert Rocco. I mean, big surprise. Now, people are going to complain and bitch and moan because they're going to say, oh, it's rigged. The commissioner won the league. But let me tell you something. That's not how fantasy football works. Okay.
No.
I'll talk about the most diplomatic league that I've ever seen. It's been the Pro Capper. And we're going on 3 years, going on 4 years. So we ran a tight ship. It was very diplomatic, and we have a tight list of rules that basically dictate what goes on and what happens. And we're quick to crack the whip on people that act out of turn, and that's proven itself. So I guess just from a broad perspective, what did it take to win this year? Obviously, Sam goes back-to-back championships and takes the runner-up trophy, which isn't it? It's not a small prize. It's a nice chunk of change, and you're making money by winning second place. Probably still burns a little bit for him. Last year it was Leighton. At least he beat Leighton though.
Got some revenge in there, yeah.
Yeah, got some revenge in there, reclaimed some blood glory. But what does it take? I guess just tell us about this year specifically, and tell us about what it takes to win a fantasy football championship.
Yeah, I mean, I've won a couple now. I get like top 2 or 3 often. I normally I'm not winning them all the time. I've only won 2, this being my 2nd. So, but I've gotten 2nd and 3rd probably 4 or 5 times. Um, and where it really helps separate you is if you can find at least 1 young player in the later rounds that's gonna pan out. Um, and, that might be taking a chance initially, like, they might not really have a lot of information on them coming out, and they might be rated poorly on ESPN and other draft apps, but you really gotta take a chance on a young player or 2, and the first round draft pick is obviously the most important. If you lose your first round draft pick, who's expected to get you 20, 30 points a game, your season's likely done. I mean, I've recovered from that and gotten 2nd or 3rd, but, it's really tough to win when you're losing that caliber of player, whether that's Christian McCaffrey or, Gibbs or Henry or somebody of that nature, Jonathan Taylor. Um, so when you look back, you're like, obviously not trying to divulge like the whole strat, right? Um,
Yeah, you can't. No, nobody would expect you to do that.
but it's like you got to look at not just the ratings, but you got to think holistically about the team. Like, how good's this team going to be this year? Um, Like, if I pick a running back, just because the running back's good, but their offensive line lost 4 players, are they gonna have as good of a year? Probably not. So, you gotta think through things like that. Um, some positions are up and down, like Saquon had a really, really good year, then a good year, but, kinda mid. Lost some people probably their championships this year with how he played down the stretch. But at the same time, some bad teams can also produce some really good fantasy players. I feel like a lot of people overlook. So like this year, I took Olave. Like Olave is a really good receiver. The Saints really like to air it out, so they always have at least 1 or 2 good receivers getting some yards, getting some points. And that dude balled every week. It felt like. I mean, the guy was getting 10, 20 points a week for the most part. Um, so Yeah, what was his 270 points? I don't know what he finished at for wide receiver ranking, but I would assume it's probably top 10, top 15. So, oh, 6. So, I got lucky a little bit with that, right? I knew he's going to do good. I didn't think it'd be top 10 good. Um, but he's still a young player, right? He's 25 years old. He's a player I've liked, in his professional career. So, sometimes you just gravitate to people you like too. I mean, I like Tony Pollard, but he plays for the Titans. So I ended up drafting him, and the Titans sucked this year. So he ended up sucking, and he had a couple good games, but yeah, he was not anywhere near where he's been previously. Um, he had a couple good games late, like they actually started feeding him the ball, but yeah, not very good. Um, Overall, I like having 2 quarterbacks too. That's a thing I like to do. Some people go roll with 1 quarterback, but quarterback's a position where you can find if you have 10 or a 12 or 14, even 14-man league, you can find a quarterback on the waiver wire a lot of times. Um, but if you're in a league like this one where people are scooping them up, you really gotta draft one if you wanna have a good reliable backup. Plus, if the quarterback you thought was gonna do great, starts sucking, well, now you got plan B sitting right there. And that's what happened to me because, like, I had Hurts. I drafted Hurts kinda early, like 4th or 5th round, kinda where he's projected because he gets all those rushing touchdowns, and he did not play good in several games this year. So you kinda had to, like, look at the matchups, and I had Dak Prescott as a backup, and he played really, really well. I mean, he played if the Cowboys didn't suck, they would be in the MVP candidate, scenario there with Prescott, but, um, that's kinda how I look at things. Yeah, I like to have a plan B. I like filling out the roster. I like getting, wide receivers and running backs, getting each position filled before I start getting, bench players. Um, I'm not really hot on tight ends, but in my other league, people won with tight ends. So, like, a guy that beat me in the playoffs, he had Trey McBride, who was the number 1 tight end this year, putting up 10, 15, 20 points plus a game. So there's some strategy to that, but it's like you got to start weighing in like, okay, I'm not getting the top tight end. So what am I going to do now? Should I even draft one? Should I play the tight end on a week to week? What should I do with my flex position? That's another thing. Like, are you going to run flex is probably one of the most important because you can go somebody that's really high ceiling, but then bottoms out like a Jamison Williams who can get like 30 points and then 0 and then 30 points and then 0. Like he literally did that this year. He had like 4 weeks, he had like 30, 0, 35, and if you're starting him, that's not good because the week he gets 5, all of a sudden that's an L for you and less chance you're going to make the playoffs. So I'm more of like try to find somebody that's consistent. And that's who I thought like players like Tony Pollard were going to be for me, even though he ended up sucking because of the Titans were just bad. But in history, Tony Pollard was that 10, 15 point every single week kind of guy. And so that's who I like plugging in my flex because then it's just a lock. And then I can just start playing, matchups and whatnot for my starters. And, with my flex, I know I'm getting those 10, 15 points a week. And then defense is a tough one. Kicker's a tough one. It's like who has a good offense but not good enough to score touchdowns. So you got to start thinking about that. Or like who's in a tough division that's got good defenses where this guy's going to score more field goals. Who out of all these kickers is the most accurate? Because when you miss the field goal, you get minus points in fantasy. So you don't want minus points. Same with quarterbacks. Like you don't want quarterbacks that turn the ball over. If you were back in the year where Jameis Winston was throwing 35 touchdowns, well, he also threw 30 interceptions. So fantasy-wise, not viable. So you got to think through things like that. I'd say don't always trust the rankings in the apps. Each app has its own ranking system. Who knows what algorithms and things that go into that? I would do your own research and make your own judgment. And then you kind of have some ownership of it. Like, okay, if this team just stinks, my fantasy team just stinks. Well, at least it was mine, right? I didn't just listen to all the pundits and the draft order, and basically my draft was an auto draft, and I'm just like putting my $5 in and playing the lottery, basically. Now I'm like, okay, this is my team. Like I built this shit. So
Exactly. That's a good point to make too, because if you're just going off rankings or going off the next guy that has the highest rankings or highest potential ceiling, so to speak, then what are you really doing? I mean, you're kind of going off of projections before anything even happens. And obviously, these projections are probably, hopefully, maybe based in some truth, that is, past performances. But do your own research, go off your own hunches, and kind of, like you said, pick your own players so you can make your team your own. And then, like you said, you don't have anybody to blame if they don't pan out.
yep.
But if they do well, then you can credit yourself even more. So
Something a lot of people don't watch too is bye weeks, I've noticed. So like I've played against some people that are like you go up against them and all their best players are on a bye week. It's like, well, how'd you manage that? Now, on one side, if a really good player's sitting there, but they got the same bye week as other players, sometimes you just got to take them, right? And you just got to accept that that 1 week's going to be the L. So that's something to think about too when you're drafting players. Make sure you don't have inconsistent bye week set up to where you're really hurting, and because one win could be the difference of making the playoffs or not.
right, absolutely. Very wise words there. I don't want you to spill all the beans because we don't need to give these guys any more of an edge than they already got. Just by listening to us week after week talking about our own teams.
Just watch and learn. Just watch and learn.
Yeah, watch and learn. Take notes from the pros. Watch Robert, see how he does things, and take notes of people that know fantasy, that know football, because that's what really makes the difference and gives players and managers an edge, fantasy players, when they can do their own research and really make their team their own. I'd say that's the most important lesson of that. And I guess I got to take your word for it because my team won't show for it. I made it to the first round. I kind of fought in and got in with by a formality, so to speak. But we had several bad weeks that really didn't allow us to have a potential deep run. So
Well, yeah,
that's on me. But
you were leading the league for like 5 or 6 weeks, it felt like.
I know, and then I
So,
completely fell off. Then I think I lost 4 or 5 in a row.
yeah,
So that really hurt me, both confidence wise and team record wise. So it was a double whammy. But I digress from that. Let's move back. Let's move back in the direction of the NFL postseason,
yeah.
the playoff picture, because I want to talk to you about this bracket and hint towards a couple of these games that we had the pleasure of watching over the past week. So, like you said, the Seahawks 49ers game, I had the Seahawks all day long in that game just
Yeah.
because I didn't think that the 49ers were going to get that done. Even at home, I felt like they were kind of under the weather. They're beat down. They're battered. Right. They're dealing with some stuff. And we've mentioned Sam Darnold, his ability to get to the playoffs more so than to perform in the playoffs. So I guess he has a
Mhm.
chance at redemption in that regard. But what do the Seahawks have to do to continue the ball rolling into the playoffs, especially with the first round bye?
Yeah, yeah, some of it's just luck, right? I mean, who are they gonna get to play against? Is it gonna be, you know, if you're looking at just all the low seed teams, is it gonna be Packers, Niners, Rams, right? Something like that. So, Packers got a good chance to beat the Bears, but they're out on Micah Parsons, right? Tucker Kraft's out. Love hasn't played in a bit here. So, looking like the Bears on that one, in my opinion.
Yeah, still a
So,
big rivalry, but it's I mean the Packers, you want to talk about a team that's really battered and beat down. That's the
yeah.
Packers.
Yeah, it feels like they're a little snake bit, towards the end here. And then Niners, Eagles, that's a coin flip, right? Niners really have gotten hot in some games here. And the Eagles have just, even though they're the 3 seed and they have a really good record, it just doesn't feel like a cohesive, good team. They had all that stuff about AJ Brown early, with him like just frustrated he wasn't getting the ball. Uh, literally hopping on a podcast saying if I'm on your fantasy team, cut me. Which he was joking, but still, like, you knew there was some truth in that, and so I just feel like that's the Niners game to lose, and then you go to, like, the Rams-Panthers. It's like the Panthers beat the Rams before, but it was because Stafford had laid an egg and had multiple turnovers, so I don't see that happening again. I'm taking Rams in that. So where does that leave us? So Rams, Niners, and Bears, so that would be Niners, Seahawks, you know? That'd be a
Right.
good game.
That's a
Like,
nice rematch too, especially if you can get some guys maybe come back. It's not really looking too positive in that direction for the Niners, but you like to think that they can at least lick their wounds a little bit after that Seahawks loss, just because that one really burned and
yeah.
essentially, it essentially sealed their seeding uh, in both regards. So just to get a nice revenge game once you're into the bracket, I think would be
And
sweet.
a sidebar to this, the Eagles had the weirdest strategy, right? So they come out, bench a bunch of starters, and they don't even fight for the 2 seed. So I understand like the 1 and 2 seed used to get the bye weeks, right? So there's a little less value of being the 2 seed now. But I'd rather be playing against the Packers than uh, the Niners personally. So
Absolutely.
I don't know why they went that route, and there was a lot of people asking that question. Obviously, for the player health is what they're going to say. Um, but you look at the Lions. I mean, the Lions, they go in 15-2, look like the best team in the league. They get the bye there, and then they get just absolutely destroyed by a Commanders team that did nothing in the playoffs after. So I don't know. I think like the bye week can hurt you. If you're a team that's hot and you're just winning, winning, winning. So, but if you're a team that's really injured and needs that extra week, that's where it's more helpful, in my opinion. So you kind of gotta just take the good with the bad with it, I guess. It's up to the coaches and the players to be prepared, though, right? I mean, they can't show up and lay an egg after a bye week. You should be doing better overall, and you can tell, like, good coaches after a bye are almost undefeated, and I can't name a few. I think Andy Reid's on that list, right? Where, like, Andy Reid after a bye week and he's had that extra week to prepare is, like, fucking 50-3 or something? So, there's some crazy stats like that for good coaches that, I think will really impact teams like the Seahawks. So, hopefully they can get a good game plan together for whoever they play.
Absolutely. I think that's as far as we really wanna project. We don't wanna go much. We'll probably do another one here going into
Yeah,
round 2,
for sure.
into the divisional, so we'll save the rest for that. Let's move over to the AFC. So, obviously, Broncos with the first round bye, they're on one, so to speak. Sean Payton's doing his thing over there, with that team, and the Broncos are back, I would say, and it's kind of in the similar vein as the Patriots. You know what I mean? You got young quarterbacks, you got very experienced coaches that they know bad teams, but they also know good teams. So it's kind of an interesting similarity there in the AFC. But I guess let's go the same route as we did
Yeah.
with the NFC. Who do you think the Broncos take after the wild card?
Yeah, well, hats off to the Broncos being number 1 seed. They finally realized that Russ wasn't cooking and took him out the kitchen. That's what they needed to do a long time ago. I don't know why they signed with that mega deal, what their thought process was there. I mean, that guy's been just dookie for a while, so I don't know. Hats off to them for finally making that decision and, like, sticking with a guy, right, and trying to develop a quarterback and getting a coach that has historically been really good to quarterbacks. So, hats off to them for getting that 1 seed. So you're looking at Steelers, Texans. Um, when you look at the Steelers, man, like, they almost feel like, we were talking about this on the pre-show. They look like a team that doesn't really deserve to be in the playoffs, man. I don't know. They feel like the same Steelers we see every damn year without Big Ben, right? They're just
Yep.
like meddling 500 team that is down to the last week or 2 to make the playoffs, and more often than not lately, they haven't even made the playoffs, but this year they finally pull it off because they got a Hall of Fame quarterback that's, efficient enough to not lose them games, and you just wonder, like, if they get bounced here, does that start to put the target on Tomlin's back finally to get him out of town? Because how long are you gonna sit there as a Steelers fan and just accept a 500 team every single year?
Right.
So
Like, yeah, got to get over
so
the bubble.
that's the Texans game all day for me. So I feel like the Texans got that one. Bills Jags is always a tricky one because the Jags, anytime you think Jags, you just think trash can, right? I mean, you just think like the Lions of old, the Browns, like they were in this few teams that are historically the worst ever, Oakland Raiders. Like all these
Oh
teams are
yeah.
just in the bottom barrel of the league for so long that now that they're finally decent, you don't know how to feel about them. Like you have your historical sentiments. You think back to, well, Blake Bortles, right? Blake Bortles, and they actually go to the AFC Championship, and if a couple calls go their way, which you could say hashtag NFL rigged on that one, they go, they make it to the Super Bowl. But um,
Yeah,
there's
no, yeah, yeah.
questionable fumbles and stuff happened in that game that definitely looked like they were giving the Patriots the win. But now they're going up against the Bills, and the Bills, this is make or break, man. Just like I don't really like jumping on board with all the other sports talk hosts are talking about, but this is one that I 100% agree with. This is their year, right? There's no Patrick Mahomes, right? There's no Tom Brady in the AFC. There's no like big guy that's just sitting there. Obviously, the Patriots are good. Like, there's good teams, but there's not that elite. They have the most elite quarterback probably in all the playoffs. So that should put them above other teams, especially against a Jags team that has really just found their footing with a new coach and coordinators and whatever else they got going on down there. I honestly haven't paid a lot of attention to the Jags because again, they're this team that historically has been so bad. It's hard to even want to go watch their games and see who's even on their team. But
That's
um,
exactly how I feel. I'm like, "Oh my god."
I
I
can
can't
name like
almost look, I
probably
can't
two
even
players.
believe it.
Yeah, I
I
can name
can't
like
believe
two
how that
players
they're
on their team, like Trevor Lawrence, ETN. Who's their receiver that they just got? Yeah, see,
um,
that about stops me
exactly,
right there. So,
exactly.
yeah, I think that's the Bills, And then the Patriots, Chargers. Chargers have looked good at times. They've had some injuries. I just feel like this is easy Patriots win here. The Chargers feel like again like almost a Steelers team where they're always a fringe playoff team, and then when they make it, they get bounced. And the only time they don't get bounced is when they have a Hall of Fame quarterback. So or borderline Hall of Fame. I don't know if you call Philip Rivers a Hall of Fame, but he's at least in the conversation. Probably not enough accolades to be Hall, um, but yeah. So I think that's your list: Patriots, Bills, Texans. So that
Yep.
would leave the Bills to play the Broncos
Wow.
in the next round.
Interesting. I mean, the Bills, they have to convert because we know that they can lose to bad teams, and the Jags are not a
Yep.
bad team. The
Nope.
Dolphins
Not at
are a
all.
bad team. So that's where my question marks are with the Buffalo Bills, and obviously I have my gripes, and I've seen the most. I think I'd say holes and cracks in the foundation of the entire team this year than I've ever seen.
Well, look at that spread, -1.5
I
in the
mean, yeah, and
playoffs.
you're playing a high mark. You're playing a high mark.
Yeah, and, like, all the other spreads too. Houston, -3, New England, -3.5. The only one that's actually kinda large is the Rams are at -10.5, which that could be a sneaky game, right? I mean, the Panthers come and play like
Yeah,
they've played, they could win.
I
Like,
know. And a 4 and a 5 seed. I mean, that's the one where I would expect that one to be a little bit tighter.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I guess I expect a lot of these to be tight, but you look at Green Bay -1.5. How do you get that?
Yeah, honestly, and
I
and
mean,
the
that's blows my mind. As the 7 seed versus the on fire Bears.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the Rams, they're getting, Adams back, Devontae Adams. It sounds like he's gonna play in this game, so, what's that one at 4:30 tomorrow?
Yeah, on Sunday. Or wait, yeah, the 10th. Yep,
Yeah, they
tomorrow.
got that one, and then the Packers game is the evening game tomorrow.
Yep. There's
So,
some great games coming up this week. I mean, if you want I think if you wanna set up your slips, get your bets in tonight because I feel like all these spreads I think are gonna change going into, the early hours tomorrow because
yeah.
they're too juicy right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would alt spread the Patriots for sure. I feel like that's got a huge blowout potential with the Chargers.
Yeah, you'd say
Um,
would you take more points from
yeah,
the,
yeah, I would
Patriots?
push to 10. I would go like 9.5.
Oh, wow.
I think that could easily be a two-score game.
And that could be big plus money too. You add that to a parlay,
Yeah.
you're looking at some big plus money.
Now, I might eat my words, right? Because Drake Mays, how much playoff experience does he have? Absolutely none. So he could be a Sam Darnold in the playoffs. We don't know. Lamar Jackson in the playoffs, right? I mean, a lot of these guys, as soon as they get to playoffs, they're a different player because it's just a different level of pressure. The scheme, the teams, obviously the talent's better. You're playing against the best of the NFL. Um,
That's the same with Bo Nix though too, with the Broncos in the 1 seed.
exactly. Yeah. So how are they going to
But
perform against, if the Bills do win, like, or even the Chargers, like, how are they going to play against those teams? So, yeah,
exactly. We've even mentioned too how seasoned veterans like Sam Darnold can't really perform, or even Lamar Jackson for that matter, or Josh
yeah.
Allen, how they can't really perform in the playoffs, at least in divisional championship games.
Yeah, the big thing with Josh Allen, man, is you saw that missed pass, on the 2 point, right? They went for the 2 point for the win against somebody a week or 2 ago.
Yeah, shit, who do they play?
Uh,
49ers, I think, right?
I think that might be correct, and he just came out, he's like, "I just missed the throw." It was obvious, like, he was rolling out under pressure, receiver was wide open, and just missed him.
Oh my god, and he
And
was
it's
so pissed throwing helmets. I mean, he
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
throwing helmets, he was slamming them though on the
Now
sidelines,
maybe
and he was
on the flip
visibly
side
pissed.
maybe that's some fire to go out here and just dominate, right? I wonder
Yeah.
if he's gonna put up, like, 5, 6 touchdowns on the Jags now
Well,
because of that.
he had to be visibly pissed in that moment because with what happened and with the scale of that loss, maybe not what it meant for seeding purposes or what it meant for the playoff picture, but for
Personal
the
level.
severity of that loss. If that is a playoff game and you're walking off the field for the last time that
Oh,
season,
yeah, you'd be sick.
you're sick to your stomach. So I think he kind of brought that mentality and some of the past heartbreak into that moment because he was visibly distressed and distraught from losing that game, and he knew it was on him. So it wasn't on the route, it wasn't on the separation, it wasn't on the lineman, it wasn't on the scheme, it wasn't on the play. It was on him, and he knew that.
Yep.
So he almost has to reclaim some of that dominance, some of that taking over, and putting the team on his back type of mentality, because he's lost a lot of that. Now, obviously, he's dealing with some stuff. We've seen, and it's proven itself that Josh Allen is not indestructible. He is human, contrary to popular belief. So we see him deal with some injuries, some ailments, maybe not injuries per se, as we'd say, like a season ender, but he's dealing with some soreness. He's dealing with some damage to his body. So it's not really allowing him to be the acrobatic, put my body on the line every single play, regardless of what's at stake, kind of Josh Allen. We're getting a more conservative, a more reserved Josh Allen that's not going to be willing, or maybe his body just won't allow him to go all out on those plays. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the older he gets, right, the less he's gonna be able to play like how he's excelled at MVP level in his career. So
right.
history says it declines fast, man. Look at Cam Newton. Goes,
Oh, man.
goes 15-1 or whatever, makes the Super Bowl. Probably had, I mean, arguably that's the best quarterback season ever when you look at the stats, like 35 touchdowns, 10 picks, and he had like 15 rushing touchdowns and almost 1,000 yards or something ridiculous. So um, he
That's a
just
big
felt
body, too.
he felt unstoppable, and then immediately he gets a shoulder injury. Not long after that, has to have shoulder surgery. Never the same. And then he just wasn't as mobile anymore. And yeah, that's just how it goes. Like Lamar Jackson's going down that route right now. Doesn't feel like he's playing as electric as he used to because he isn't. Um, yeah, it just seems how it goes. RG3 comes to mind, right? You just think all these guys that you know
Andrew
burn,
Luck.
yeah, burn so bright, and then their bodies just
Oh, and they're
failed
just
them.
done,
Yeah.
whether it's by their own will or not.
Yep.
It's like you rise and you ride that out, I guess, as long as you can, because it's not a long window of unlimited physical potential.
Yeah.
Um, because that candle will burn out, and then once that burns out, you're lucky to reclaim a fraction of that.
That's almost like when we get in this argument of mobile quarterback or not, it's almost like that's why having a pocket quarterback like a Brady is more beneficial because it forces the team to have one of the best offensive lines. Because if you don't, he's not going to be able to have the time to make all the reads. He's not going to get to that third or fourth read and make some incredible throw when he's being sacked. Um, so when you look at a team like the Lions this year, even though Goff played really, really well for having such a bad offensive line, it was an obvious impact on the game. Even with his good stats this year and everything, they just felt like a completely different team because they didn't have that run game. It was more on Goff in a lot of times. And even when he was making throws, the defense wasn't stepping up. So there was a lot of issues with that team, but um, it's going to press the issue. And Brad Holmes came on the presser and said, "We have to address the offensive line. It's number one. Decker might retire. Their left tackle. Their centers, Glasgow's probably gone. Um, so they're going to be looking at replacing potentially 3 offensive linemen this year again. So when you compare that to a team like the Bills, who have had the luxury of having a really good mobile quarterback, but they haven't surrounded him with the talent. Like they've put it on Allen's shoulders to carry the load. That's only going to last so long, man. Like their window's closing, and I feel like if they get bounced by the Jags in the first round, I mean, what does that tell the team? Like, yeah, we're just not it. Like they're going to start wanting to get traded, go elsewhere, and try to find a team that's actually going to have a chance to win it all.
Yeah, that's the harsh reality, I think, that the Bills are facing, and hopefully they're having in locker room discussions right now, because that is the reality of the situation, and that window is closing. It's been closing. I think it's continuing to close. And last year
Yep.
was, I think, the beginning of the shutting of the shutters. So it's not over yet. It's not over yet, but I think you're right. Once, if this isn't the year that they at least make the run and at least get to the divisional and win, I think that players and even draft prospects are going to lose their faith in the future of the Bills. So, I guess to finish this out, let's talk about the Lions. We got to talk about the Lions. You mentioned Brad Holmes. You mentioned the
Yeah.
Lions in a small stint there. What are we looking at as far as the Detroit Lions, and what does their future look like as far as going into the fall of 2026?
Yeah, a lot to digest because Brad Holmes just had his press conference. He had it a little early this year, which, kind of odd to have it before the Super Bowl, but okay. And he came out and said basically the same cliche stuff that he's said the entire time. Like, we're just going to keep with the process. We're not going to make big moves. All the same stuff that as a fan you don't want to hear. So, I mean, I want a team that's gonna make that leap, go and get that really good player, sign a coordinator like Mike McDaniel from the Dolphins. If they can peel him from a head coaching opportunity and come just make him the highest paid, corner or coordinator in the league, that'd totally be worth it. Because look at what he did with the Dolphins, man. The Dolphins suck every year, and yet they have like a top 5, top 10 rushing offense. That would be perfect for the Lions. So sign some people like that. Um,
Wow, so you're
and
on board
also
with
in
the
his
Mike McDaniel thing because I heard about that, and I'm like, is Robert going to be on board with this? Because I thought it was a little bit satire based, but at the same time, you look at the numbers, and maybe don't look. You can kind of look past this past season, and he's not the one calling the shots really, anyways. You can kind of get past that a little bit better knowing
yeah,
that. But looking what he did, and really having no football experience of his own makes it even more impressive what he was able to do in Miami.
yeah,
So you're on board with that.
yeah, I'm 100% on board with that. He is a little quirky, but I think with this offense, it'd be a perfect fit, and they've already reached out to him, so that shows there's interest there. I think he's actually made some comments on it, but I haven't read them yet, so I'm interested to see what he actually thinks about coming here to the Lions. Um, but aside from that, it's all on the offensive line, man. Like they need to get the offensive line right. Sounds like they're losing Montgomery, so this whole Sonic and Knuckles thing's probably out. Um, which is what it is, right? We kind of saw the writing on the wall. They weren't feeding Montgomery anymore, which just feels like a mistake. Gibbs is not an every down back to me. He's really good, but you don't want him going up the middle for a 2-yard run 8 times in a row to wear the defense down. Like that was Montgomery's role, shorter, stockier running back. Um, and he was really good at it. He would get 5 yards of carry with nothing with a bad offensive line. So he actually had his best year, pretty sure, for a carry this year. So I hope they re-sign him. I hope they keep the dual running back situation going. And then on the defensive line, Brad came out and we all knew he was going to do this, man. He said, how many teams have 2 edge rushers with double digit sacks? And that's how he was defending not getting an edge rusher. And it's like, okay, well, when you actually look deep into the stats, the last 2 seasons, time to pressure, so time to get to the quarterback, they're last. They're last in the league, you know? So they might be top 5, top 10 in sacks. They might be getting to the quarterback holistically the best, but they're not getting there quick. And it's obvious when you watch the games. Like, I don't know how many Lions games you watch this year, but it seems like they got all day to throw. Whoever we're playing against, they're just back there all day. So, like, covered sacks are what they're getting. Like, as bad as our secondary is, the secondary has been a weakness because of injury, really. So, even with backups, they were still playing pretty well, and those edge rushers still weren't getting home. And then you go and watch, say, the Texans, Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, all these guys, they're getting there within 2 seconds, which is historically an average time to throw, right? I mean, the quarterbacks practice 2-second release. They go through progressions very quickly and all that stuff. So when you look at the Lions, having a GM that's complacent with not getting another edge rusher or somebody that can rush the passer is a bad sign as a fan.
Yeah, you gotta kind of compound on what you have and what you don't have. Think about what you don't have. Consider what you do have, especially if you're not retaining Montgomery, which is really going to hurt that offensive scheme of the dual running back threat. Then you got to do something on the defensive side, whether it's adding more outside linebackers, whether it's helping the secondary out. Picking up another safety, something like that. I mean, at least that'd be a step in the right direction of we want to continue to build the defense. I'm not saying he doesn't want to, but by being complacent with being last in the league at time to the quarterback from the edge rushing position, I mean,
Yeah.
Hutchinson can only do so much on his own, I think he needs some help in that regard. And he's not even really at the top of the list when it
No.
comes to guys that should be there.
Yeah, so even Hutchinson, man, like, so what he had 14 or 15 sacks this year. He disappears sometimes, man. This year in particular, like, he looked really good before he broke his leg last year where he was just dominating. This year, not so much, man. Like, they dominate on bad teams and disappear against the good ones. And that's just how all the players have played. So that's a concern. Like, Hutchinson is good, but he's not Micah Parsons good so far, right? Like, he's not getting that level of pressure every week. So we need to see him elevate his game next year. Hopefully, when he's back after another healthy season, that he can get some of that swagger back. And then also Kirby Joseph, man, they dropped a bomb on us in this press conference because they interviewed Brad Holmes and they asked, like, "Hey, did you know about his knee injury before you signed the extension?" Because they signed Kirby to a huge extension, and he's like, "We knew about it, but we didn't know the severity and all this stuff." And he really implied that this could be career altering for Kirby Joseph. And Kirby Joseph deleted all of his social media account, and he posted on there on Instagram. He said, "God help me." That's all he said.
Oh boy, that's
So
not
this,
good.
no,
It seems like Brad Holmes is almost out of touch, and he's trying to sell a false bid, he's trying to sell false goods, or a false bid. I'm trying to think
yeah,
of this. What I'm trying to say here. He's
false
trying
false
to,
narrative,
yeah,
really.
sell the facade of
Yeah.
everything is okay, everything's under control, but it's
He
not.
he admitted some guilt early in the press conference, but the longer they talked to him and asked questions, the more it became apparent that they aren't going to change. Like, so as a Lions fan, it's like, okay, on one hand, he's taken this team to heights we've never seen in our lifetime. But on the other hand, they know they need to elevate and change to go to the next level. How do the Eagles operate? How do the Rams operate? Teams that are perennial deep runs, Super Bowl contending playoff NFC teams make these moves, man. They go out and they get players. And he's willing to trade draft picks away in the draft, but then come free agency or trade, he's not willing to give those draft picks up for a known commodity. So I don't understand that logic. Like, he's traded up to get Tesla, multiple third round picks. He's traded up to get linebacker Barnes. He's traded up to get a left tackle that played in British Columbia. Um, he's traded up to get D tackles that aren't even going to be on the team. So I don't know. I don't know what he's doing in the draft with all these trades. He's traded up to get Jamison Williams, who they probably shouldn't even have re-signed. Um, Led the league in drop rate, by the way. I had some people arguing to me about Jamison Williams, right? Like, they said, "Oh, he had less drops than St. Brown." It's like, no, JMO had 12, St. Brown had 10, but the difference is JMO had half the targets. So St. Brown might have had 10 drops, but he got targeted 170 times. So, his drop rate's way less, whereas JMO has 12 drops or whatever it is on like 80 targets or 90 targets or whatever. So that's the difference. And both of them had a down year. So it's like no one was helping each other out on this team. It felt like if somebody stunk, no one else was stepping up. And the GM put him in a terrible position by not getting players that we need. No offensive line. He didn't draft offensive line the last couple drafts. Instead of getting, like, I don't know, a second corner, he got a corner in the second round after drafting one in the first round when we could have got a center because we knew Ragnar was going to retire soon. Um, what about Taylor Decker? He's considering retirement. Why haven't we drafted his replacement? Teams like the Eagles and the Rams, they've already went out and drafted replacements because they're thinking years ahead, not just, what can I get this year? I feel like Brad Holmes has gotten a little too much into the toys and the flashy players like Tesla. Um, that he's really missed out on some good core players that we could have drafted, like, who's the center? Jurgens for the Eagles. We could have drafted him, but instead we took a corner or a wide receiver or something flashy. So
Yeah.
it's disappointing. You just hope that they don't just stick to their guns and their laurels and just go out and have a vanilla draft, and we're just sitting here like, well, cool, like, I wanna see him sign a player that gets me excited, right? I'm a fan, I wanna be excited for the team next year. I mean, even though it didn't really work out for the Packers because he got injured, imagine how excited you would have been as a Packers fan knowing you got Micah fucking Parsons on your team now.
Oh
Like, you
man.
were already good. You already had a good team, young core players, and now you got a generational pass rush. And on week 1, he comes out and makes the Lions shit the bed single-handedly, almost. I mean, he just shut the Lions down. He shut the whole game plan down for the Lions. Um, Really probably ended the Lions season at that point, right out of week 1. So
Single-handedly, probably.
oh, yeah. He was a difference maker, and he's been a difference maker his whole career, so he's on his own level. He's like Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt is right up in there.
Oh yeah, just like they're just wrenches. They're just like, imagine throwing a wrench into a gearbox.
Yep.
That's what Micah Parsons is. That's what a TJ Watt is. That's what a Myles Garrett is. Just they're just menaces to any offense. And if you can if you can have that player, which I think they wanted to be Hutchinson,
Yep.
or it could have been a Brian Branch, but then you deal with that injury too.
Yeah.
So
A lot
you
of
got to
injuries.
have those wrenches that you can throw in the offense's gearbox, so you can really be a menace and really stir the pot and essentially shake things up as far as a playoff picture goes. And you can do that early in the season.
Yeah.
So you got to have
Yeah.
those guys.
They're talking about, people that were unhappy with the defense this year, firing Shepard, the coordinator. It's like, well, we can't have 2 new coordinators again, right? I mean, that's just too much turnover for players to get into a groove with a system and have success. Now, the elite players can, and they can adapt and all that, but your young players are really gonna struggle. Like, they've only been in the system a year, and now it's completely different. Um, so I hope they keep Shepard. I think he did a good job this year. They just didn't have the players. They had all these injuries. They lost both their safeties. They lost their starting corners. Both their starting corners were out at points of the year. So, and their backup corner. I mean, they were down to like people I've never even heard of playing corner. I still can't even name all their defensive backs that were playing. That's how far down the depth chart they were going. I mean, they were pulling people off the couch to come play. So, and that's back
Really
to back.
though, I
That's
mean
back to
that's
back
really not too
years.
far of a stretch.
And that's back to back years of that. So what's happening with the injuries on the Lions? Is it the field? Is it the training regimen? Is it the food they're eating? I have no idea. Is it just bad luck? Is it the Lions curse? It could be a million things. So I'm hoping they get over that hump at a minimum. Like, even if the defense is middling and mediocre, I just don't want to see them all sitting on the couch watching with a broken leg at home. I'd rather, at least if they're going to be bad, I'd rather see them be bad on TV.
Absolutely, well said. I think we should do an episode. This is my idea going into maybe even the off season. Is do an episode just talking about the Lions, what they need to do before the next draft, and kind
Yep.
of even playing Brad Holmes a little bit, playing the role of Brad Holmes, playing a role of members of the higher offices within the Detroit Lions franchise, and say, what do they need to do? Because we've seen the writing on the wall with some problems for the Detroit Lions specifically over the last couple of years, and there's similar problems. They're almost the same problems. Getting core guys, really assisting the defense, because the defense has been left out to dry, I think,
Yep.
in a big way, and kind of taking the focus off of the flashy players, the skill players,
Mhm.
the guys that are scoring the touchdowns, the guys that are holding the football, because everybody likes those players, right? Everybody likes to look at those players. If you got a high value prospect coming up through the draft that just graduated or he's looking to get drafted, you got your eyes on him. You know what I mean? We do as
Yeah.
fans. But if you're a true analyst, you're looking at building the entire empire. You're trying to build a team that's not just going to be good for next year, but the next 5 years. And then within that 5 years, you're continuing to build. So you're not just doing things for today, or I say doing things for the weekend. You're not just doing things for the weekend. You're doing things for the next year, the next 5 years. So in that regard, you got to be building for the future. Play chess, not checkers.
Yeah, and that kind of feels like what Brad Holmes has been doing, right? I mean, he's been drafting really well for the most part, and then re-signing his own guys, and he's just almost like playing the long game that way. But you got to have a mix of everything too. Like you can't just rely solely on the draft. We need a couple veterans in there in the locker room as a presence, and both experience. Like for center, if Glasgow retires, which he didn't play great this year anyway, so or if he goes somewhere else, I don't want to see him draft a rookie center and watch Jared Goff get blown up by D tackles all year. Like I would rather see them go out and trade or sign a good center, pay him whatever. We got cap space. We can restructure Goff. Goff's due like 70 million this year for some reason because they restructured his deal already. Restructure it again, move some cap around. Decker's probably gone, so that's 18 million in cap coming back. But yeah, you could definitely make an episode out of this team because they're in a really tough. This is a make or break year. Are they going to continue to ascend and be a team that's relevant? Or are they going to fall right back down to where we used to seeing them? You know?
Exactly. You have to treat this year as a retest. And if you find that support, using that trading terminology, you find that support, this is your year to do it. So that's what Lions fans, and that's what analysts of all calibers have to be looking at. Is this is a reset. This is a retest. We have to be looking at the positives, regardless of how glaring a lot of these negatives are.
100%.
Yep. So good deal. We'll leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Double Coverage. Robert, you got any final words, final thoughts for the people out there, maybe the bettors going into this weekend of wild card football?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to bet on playoff games, I'd ignore a couple of these spreads, man. I mean, obviously they're always tight in the NFL. Just go with your gut on a couple of these. Like, I really think the Patriots could be one of those teams. They could get a blowout win. But then again, like the Panthers could easily cover against the Rams, right? I mean, they played them really well last time. Is Bryce Young going to play good in the playoffs? We don't know, right? But yeah, there's some tight spreads out there. So really, I would say go with your gut. Obviously, gambling is a risk in itself, right? I mean, you're taking a chance regardless of all the analytics and how you feel about teams and all that stuff. All the stuff I could be telling you right now could go right out the window tomorrow. So this is just my opinions, right? I think the Patriots are a good team, but they could suck. They could suck.
Well, they got to take the field. They got to still go out there and do it, what we think they can do. You know, if they lay an egg, it's like, well, we thought they weren't going to lay an egg.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And stand on business on it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of similar to fantasy football. You go into it with the best knowledge possible, and you throw the rest to the wind. So that's kind of how betting works.
Yeah. As long as you're not trying to make a living off of it, you're good to go.
Yeah. Right. No kidding. Good deal. Find all of our links in the bottom of the podcast in the description. Find us on our website, ginsportsnetwork.com. Find us on Instagram at ginsportsnetwork. And we'll see you guys here next time on Double Coverage. For now, I'm John J. II alongside Robert Rocco with the DCP. We'll see you here next time. Have a great night.